But the roots of another disaster were lurking just beneath the surface. Our economy still totally relied on agricultural exports to the UK.
It's the same problem New Zealand faced in the long depression of the 1880s. Anytime the UK market started to shrink, the gears of our economy seized up. Even a small drop in export prices could be a big problem.
Between 1928 and 1934, the prices didn't just drop, they crashed. They fell 45%.
The crash was kicked off by a stock market panic on Wall Street in New York, which spiralled into a global economic recession.
The effect in New Zealand was devastating. At least 80,000 men ended up unemployed, roughly 30% of our male workforce.
The government responded by introducing relief payments for the unemployed, but to get that money, people had to take part in public work programs, digging ditches, weeding, building roads and fences.
At first, these schemes were set up locally in towns and cities, but as the crisis dragged on, the government set up rural work camps for unemployed men. And the conditions in those camps could be pretty rough. Like, here's a description from the Auckland Weekly News. The floors of the tent are earthen, uncovered by boarding, and many of them were very dampened by rain soakage. Men bathe in the drains, wash in a horse trough. Nearly always they are ankle deep and knee deep in water, and often waist deep. For many men, the worst part of the camps was isolation from friends and family. Men sometimes had to travel hundreds of kilometres from home to work in the camps.
The lives of women in the Great Depression could be even more difficult. Back in the 1930s, there were strong social taboos against married women working, and single women weren't paid nearly as much as men.
Single mums often had to beg or scrounge to feed their kids. And on top of that, inspectors would come to check their houses and cut their relief payments if they weren't spotlessly clean.
A new generation of female politicians emerged in the Depression. One was Elizabeth McCombs, who became New Zealand's first ever female MP in 1933. In her maiden speech to Parliament, she called on politicians to recognise the suffering of women. The official figures for unemployment register 80,000 unemployed. These figures do not include women. If we include women and youths, we find that the number is practically double.